We're here to kind of talk you all through what an AI journey looks like. I'd happily throw the floor open to questions at any point. There won't be any jargon, I promise. But if there's anything that you find interesting, confusing, or you just want to make a point, please just put your hand up and we'll get to it and try and make this as open as possible. So yeah, that's exactly what we're going to dig into now. I don't have a clicker, which is on the side. So we'll do a bit of introduction. We're Peak. We're an enterprise AI company. We let retailers do great things with their data. Obviously, all AI is data-driven, and we'll get into the kind of a bit more of the complexity behind that in a few slides' time. We truly believe that you can put AI at the middle and the heart of any business, and it can drive revenues, profits, and cost centers too. What we do differently that we think other software providers don't do is we bring the people and the technology together. So more than just a managed service, we have industry experts in-house. We also have data scientists who have had years in industry and PhDs coming out their ears. And we work with a number of different retailers. Some headlines you might have seen on the website or stand outside. ASOS, Morrison's, and with us today, Footasylum.
So I'm Tom Summerfield. I'm not the head of e-commerce like it says on the piece of paper. I have a little bit of a broader role than that. I'm actually a consultant with Footasylum, and I sort of live between the e-com and marketing departments, and increasingly over the last year or so, the retail arm of the business. Footasylum, if you don't know who we are, was founded in 2005. First store up in 2006, and now we are at about 70 stores, just shy of 70 stores, with a busy website that continues to grow sort of 30% plus year on year. And our sort of relationship with Peak came about because, well, when I joined the business about 18 months ago, having been around the Footasylum business for a bit longer than in various different guises, and we sort of identified very quickly that there's this sort of bifurcation of retail going on where the stores are quite powerful over here and the website was quite powerful over here, and they're actually, if you're not careful, sort of pulling away from each other. So we wanted to find a way of halting that bifurcation and sort of bringing them together where the momentum of one would help the other and vice versa. And that led us to a chat with Peak.
Yeah, I think that was one of the interesting things is we don't have too many customers who come to us with a great idea of what they kind of want to see or what they want to get out of it. And being able to sit down in the same room together and really hash it out as a partnership was a great place to start, I think.
Yeah, I think we were like Footasylum is the sort of we're not tiny, but we're not humongous either. And it is the sort of place you can sort of turn up on a Monday and sort of go, like, I've had an idea. And we're sort of doing it by Friday, which is quite nice in some ways, but then it leads to other complications in others. But I think we were ready to we knew we needed to be doing something around data, but we're sort of going into it eyes wide open, really. We were prepared to learn, essentially.
Yeah.
We were obviously interested in personalisation and interested in the omnichannel-ness that should exist within that. But yeah, we've we've developed the ideas together, I think it's fair to say.
Just maybe to kind of frame the idea a little bit more precisely, were there any specific metrics or customer behaviours you were looking to influence with the work of data that you...
Well, the personalisation bit really, because there are some metrics around sort of purchase frequency, average order value, ultimately new customer acquisition that are very important, and we'll touch on a bit of that in a bit. But overwhelmingly, the personalisation bit, someone mentioned it earlier that we posture to sort of 14 to 24-year-olds, which some people don't know how to talk to 14 to 24-year-olds, which is okay, because there's plenty of people who do know how to do that. But in a world where seemingly attention spans are reducing, but it is I would say it is a bit of a myth that you can't grab their attention. It's just if you don't have their attention, it's possibly because you're not showing them the right thing potentially.
Yeah.
So the topic of personalisation and showing people the right thing at the right time, in the right just moment was the main priority essentially.
Yeah, that focus was really good, because I remember we saw, so what people conventionally do is bring all your data and look for opportunity. We saw that there are things you could do in the warehouse, there are things you could do in the logistics space, there are things you could do directly on e-commerce platforms, but there's a great opportunity to go after your target customer through marketing channels which are relatively well established, and you had a foothold in social, email, push.
Yeah, we're quite good at the sort of lead generation, the front end stuff, content, marketing, product.
The collateral is some of the stuff that you bring, and that's, I suppose, where what the other side of the agenda that Peak don't do is the collateral and the brand messaging you can pull through in a really smart way.
Yeah, we've got quite an aspirational brand to that 14 to 24-year-old sort of demographic.
Yeah.
And it was only that some of the clever back-end stuff was potentially, we were not as mature in that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's potentially where the partnership's been working out best, is that in order to talk to over 1 million customers and to talk to them how they want to be spoken to, so whatever platform that's on, there is fundamentally a requirement for machine learning or AI. The data processing, the recording, and the kind of next best step that you're trying to always achieve with that customer, even if that next best step is, say, silence for a few days, is only achievable potentially through AI.
Yeah, and that, to me, is, because I would call this digital transformation. Systemically, we haven't had to change too much, but culturally, it's been a full process of digital transformation, because I think we all watch the news enough to know, and we're all on enough email updates to know that it can be tough if you don't have your ducks in line in terms of, and today has been all about that, so how do people transform through it. But I think culturally is the biggest one, and I think you've got to be willing to embrace that with a few of the key sort of like solid goals behind where we wanted to get to, which is what you touched on, but be prepared to culturally just tweak and then move a bit faster and forward a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair assessment, and something that Peak are trying to look to do with all of our partners in particular is allow them to take that tech pressure off your hands. You don't have to worry about the infrastructure, you don't have to worry about the data scientist team, you don't have to worry about the integrations to and from any platform.
Yeah, we are not blessed with humongous sort of CapEx capabilities, and we don't have humongous teams of techies sat in an office waiting for us to tell them what to do. So we lean on Peak a lot for that reason, and it's almost, in some respects, it's like invisible tech in some respects, because we don't have to worry about a lot of the tech stuff. It's quite light on resource-wise on our side.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, trying to bring this to life a bit, we've got a few statistics of the performances of our campaigns and what we're looking to do. We're really impressed with how it's going. I think that what Tom's kind of alluded to, plus the way Peak try and work and bring our customers in closer together, allow that really close partnership, and to understand their customers in detail, both by using data but also the experience that merchandisers, buyers, marketeers have, the people that can talk to those 14 to 24-year-olds. So I think probably one way of looking at these three stats is to look at the journey. So don't look at them in isolation. Look at them as if you're a customer that's been touched on email and you've had a personalised email with a recommended product fulfilled. You've had that sent at the right time, and you've opened it and clicked through on the device that we think you're most likely to click on. You then have received an ambient campaign, say, in your social feed, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, wherever, and you've engaged with the brand both in-store and online by browsing. So I think there's probably quite a big how at the moment in the room, and fundamentally that all comes down to the data that you have. So what we've been able to do with Footasylum is bring a number of their data sources together and unify them on the Peak platform. So we have a proprietary platform that we've built with the data scientists and engineering capability that we have in Manchester. What that does is allow us to see a customer at every stage of the journey. So when that customer is in store, we'll get onto the app later, but we know when they're in store, we know when they're browsing online because we have the Google Analytics data. We also know the transactions they've made because of the history of their purchases. On top of that, we know the communications that they receive well and click on and click through. And what that allows us to do is build up a really rich picture of each customer and their habits and what they enjoy with the brand. So I think it would be fair to say there are a lot of products from a lot of brands at Footasylum, and you're both trying to please the customer on one side, but also the suppliers on the other. And what you're seeing is almost a double win in this scenario. So customers are reacting well, but also suppliers.
Yeah, the first one, the email one, is, well, no, this applies to all three actually, but the word, I think, because it sounds like you've explained it nicely there, but the one word I would say is the segmentation stuff that we've done, so that based on all of the data that has been aggregated, then we can, well, the royal we, people like sort of the AI machine learning to power with our business priorities and trading mentality and strategies, how we then apply segmentation to the database, which then yields some of these results. So actually we've challenged the guys and ourselves to actually, can we send less better marketing to consumers, and knowing when they're in market or when maybe to leave them alone and maybe send them warm them up with a different type of messaging and this sort of thing. And it's proven to be very powerful, and we're very satisfied with that so far, as the metrics that you can see on the screen.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that's come up in conversation, we've also been chatting about it back and outside all today, is that these are the results that are a combination of an omnichannel experience. So we are able to see an omnichannel experience happening through the data that we have available to us. And then these results just happen to come against a certain campaign or against a set of campaigns over a certain amount of time to deliver that, say, final revenue, that final click or that final cost reduction. But they're only being generated and delivered because of the information that we have on each customer and what they do. So perhaps I could dig into a little bit of detail on this next slide, which is kind of a culmination of all three of them, and Tom, you might want to talk about.
Well, yes, certainly a combination of the second and third. So this is a result that we had on a recent campaign, that one of the restrictions of being a PLC business is I'm not allowed to tell you the juicy number, but because we haven't told the world yet. But we'll be putting a proper press release out about this, because this was a really cool stat. If you think of high hundreds ROAS return that you would get through more traditional digital marketing channels, we returned at 10 times what people think is a good ROAS model. I actually personally don't like ROAS, because it's just top line revenue, and it can be pure sort of vanity sometimes, and doesn't reflect on profit essentially. But the results we had was like outrageous. Essentially, it was. I think all of us were sort of a bit taken aback by just how powerful it was when you combine what would be a compelling bit of retail strategy with some advanced segmentation, and then the results are seemingly amazing. Is what we've experienced, and now we're looking to build on this.
Yeah, I think one of the other kind of aspects. I'll give you kind of a bit of flavour around this, and then go on to talk maybe a bit about how we actually delivered this, so how somebody in Tom's team was able to make this happen. First one is, we're in a world of, it's a very different world that we live in now to what we did in 10 or 15 years ago, and I don't mean in terms of omnichannel, because that's always kind of been around, but in terms of the people we're competing against, and you're looking at Amazon and Facebook and Google, and they really act as gatekeepers of all of the world that we're playing in now, and they get to make a lot of powerful decisions about who sees your product and when they see your product. But this is kind of the edge that I'm keen on exploring, because it's not that I don't like them, it's just that I would like to see smaller businesses doing perhaps a little bit better than they are. Their programs are built by data scientists and AI engineers, as are ours. So if we can come up with a way in which we can engage with those AIs behind the curtain, because they were kept in a black box, by building smart lists and smart triggers, then we can start to get returns like this through their platforms and start to maybe win a few smaller battles in the war. So what I'd say about this, how this happened, Peak have a platform, you log into your platform, you can then access your data however you wish, so you can cut, clean, dry, whatever. You can then also pull off targeted kind of campaign lists that allow you to push into Google, Facebook or whoever, among other API outlets through any communication provider. What's interesting about what we do, potentially above any other data aggregator, is we add in predictive elements. So combined within this score is the machine learning algorithm searching for people who have a high propensity to spend now. So we can work out through previous purchasing habits and browsing history if someone is in market to spend. We can look at the recommended product of what would be best for them to spend. We also know the stock level, so we can know if that's in stock and filter for that. So then you've got an idea of what product to give them and who to give it to. You can then go another step further than that and work out predictively whether or not that person's at risk of leaving the service or not. So if you have a high risk, high value customer, you want to act on that immediately, and you could perhaps put more money behind the campaigns. I think happened in a few occasions. Or if you are searching for someone with a specific trait or trope, or you want to target a specific city, you can do that too. So it allows, I think, and I know Catherine was meant to be joining us today, you might have seen her name on the invite. Yeah, she kind of runs that part of the team.
Yeah, the day-to-day implementation.
So she's CRM.
She's CRM manager. Yeah. So this was I'm probably missing the obvious. This was a Facebook activation. And really simple. It's just harnessing like you were saying, almost re-engineering, or not. Reverse engineering the Facebook algorithms by uploading our own segment to Facebook, and that's what's yielded these powerful results. Now the guys are doing these sorts of things every day, not one at a time, but because it was so rich in terms of its yield, in link to the stats of the other one. So we are sending better marketing communications to people. And we're getting amazing sort of efficiencies off the back of it as well, which is sort of beautiful, really, for anyone who gets a kick out of efficiency. It's sort of the perfect world of all of that, and it's because it's cost less in order to do it as well. I think
perhaps another interesting kind of human side of AI and what we're doing is Catherine's job has changed, and she's from seeing it from the outside, she's become even more creative and kind of strategic in her thinking than perhaps when she started with. In the relationship with Peak, how do you see that playing out in teams?
So someone who is good to start with is, in our instance, is definitely key to that. But when we have some sort of always-on campaigns that are a regular part of the business as usual, they become part of the business as usual sort of weekly sort of stuff. But then it fuels. It's quite provoking in terms of fueling new thoughts on new campaigns, ad hoc stuff that we can do, and then every now and again it'll spit one out like that, and you go, okay, we don't need the accountants to tell us we're going to do more of that one, and add sort of layers of sophistication to our business as usual trading calendar. It's really cool, actually.
Yeah. So I think we kind of dug into that. The how. Is there any immediate questions on the how? Is there anything that isn't obvious? Because I know it can be a lot to take in a short space of time.
Yeah, can you just explain what you mean by reverse engineering Facebook algorithms? What is that in sort of a layman's terms?
No, 100%. So, do everyone hear the question? How do you reverse engineer Facebook algorithm? First presentation of the day, Elena mentioned bot-to-bot marketing. In short, it's basically that. So Facebook have created an AI that sits behind their audience dispersion platform, however you want to look at it. It's how you see the adverts you see, it's how you scroll down Instagram and suddenly you are talking about the gym and there's a gym advert, or you were, some payment might have been read on your card that you go to the gym. So they collect data in a lot of ways, and that AI then disperses that information and targets you with the appropriate content. What we've found is that, and this works for Facebook because they pay per click and pay per impression, is that if you load that engine with, and it's a lot of trial and error and trying to improve and using Catherine's like knowledge of the market and understanding what segments to put in. If you load that engine with kind of filler, so people in London fill, it seems to get confused. So it's trying to pick out the specific attributes of that group of people, and it can't. And so you get kind of like a vanilla layer across all of those impressions. You don't get the conversions that you want to see, and you don't get the clicks that you want to see. So Facebook put it out everywhere, and you pay for that, and that's great, and it doesn't really work, but what you might want to do next is put more stuff in. What we found is the opposite works. So the more targeted you make that list that you initially put in, the more targeted that you make that API call, the more targeted you make those times, the AI can immediately pick out the variables that are of importance. So we've almost done a pre-screening, so we know these are the variables that are important to you, AI, from our AI. Go and find more people that have these other variables, and Facebook knows all that. That's just a lookup in a huge data table they've got on everyone in this room. So that's kind of shortening the journey and the process that their AI has to do. And although, yeah, it still is black box, it seems to be changing the results that we get at the end of it.
Yeah,
It's cheaper.
Oh, it's way cheaper, yeah.
It sort of played them at their own game a little bit, because they'll create an audience for you based on some specifications that you've potentially just uploaded. Anyone who's familiar with Facebook advertising, it's quite a straightforward process. It's just a few clicks and a couple of bits of filling some stuff, forms in and things. Actually, we've leapt it forward to about step 5 here or something, by giving it our audience. It's like, no, we'll tell you who we want in our audience, thank you, because we've already got a load of our own data that's where we've proved is relevant for it. So it's streamlining what is already quite a powerful advertising platform, and the simplicity is really nice as well, because it means that you don't need to be like some wizard in digital marketing really to operate it either. It's quite straightforward essentially once the AI's done all the work for us.
Cool. So, do you want to talk a little bit about Unlocked?
Yeah, so we mentioned this is a bit more some omnichannel-ness sneaking in here. So Unlocked is our loyalty program that we launched in August last year. We quickly realised that we didn't have a single customer view when we were starting playing around with data with Peak at the start of last year. So we wanted to do this in the stores as a way of understanding our consumers better. That was its primary goal, essentially, to learn about our consumers, but actually it's not just another loyalty scheme. It was really, really important that, especially with the demographic that we posture to, that it would be an engaging proposition. It works like a cashback scheme, essentially. If you spend £100, you'll get a little 5% voucher to spend on your next purchase. It sort of dramatically is improving some of those key metrics that we spoke about at the start. There's like a lifestyle element to it, and it's really about putting the Footasylum brand in a world where there's so much noise for our consumers, putting the brand a little bit more front of mind by being a little bit, hopefully, very compelling. And it appears to be working so far, and some of the results that I definitely can't tell you about are proving that we're seeing actually quite a lot of crossover of consumers who are spending in store, earning a voucher in store and then redeeming it online and vice versa, which I think is nearly the definition of omnichannel retailing, which is very satisfying in the early days. And this is when you layer the sort of some of the AI stuff over the top, which we're doing. It's a really exciting new sort of not only profit centre for the business, but it's a very compelling sort of future-proofing strategy for both our 70 shops and our digital sort of ecosystem, and as well promoting that sort of digital-first culture in the stores for our consumers, because previously the Footasylum brand could have been, you could angle at it that it was probably under-delivering on its promise for our consumers. And we believe we've addressed that now, as soon as a consumer's in the store, they probably would have their phone in their hand anyway a lot of the time, but this is actually, they've got to use that in our store now, which I mean, we've spent all day talking about people frustrated how we breathe new life into the high street. It's like you've got to bring some digital into the high street. I sort of think it's not that. I mean, I think it's not that difficult. Essentially, that we believe that's it's future-proofing our stores by doing that and affecting commercial metrics as well.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant because I think Footasylum does stand as a brand in itself as well as a house of brands, and what you've got there is just my background in marketing, talking here and getting a bit excited. But like you have that portal into that, which is more than just points and apps and gathering data. You've got competitions, you've got exclusive clubs, you've got memberships, you're part of that community that the millennials and the Gen Zs want to be a part of. And on top of that, I was thinking is that the AI in a way hasn't damaged that brand kind of conversation that you can have, because you can still lead it and you just use the AI and machine learning to move the data points around quicker and to gather that understanding in a more rich way.
It's totally seamless, actually. There was a phrase, I have stood in front of people before and claimed that I made this up and I didn't, so I'll come clean this. But there's a phrase that is, it's the art of answering customer questions before they ask them, essentially, which I think is a beautiful headline for it. And this is the idea of we send them less marketing, but it's better at the right times and this sort of thing. And this is allowing us to harvest this in the stores, that what people are doing and things. So so it's a totally seamless addition to our brand from a technical point of view, but actually quite a bold move forward on the brand as a proposition. Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of got the final slide here. We just wanted to get your thoughts, Tom, given that you've built a number of brands in your time. You've also in a great position to see the future of retail in general. Where do you see AI, machine learning, data, and customer experience coming together, and how could you see that potentially playing out in the future?
It's been mentioned a few times today, but personalisation is just, I personally value that over everything at the minute. I think that is, and it can't be just, it puts your name and the title of an email address. That's not personalisation anymore. It's no longer, consumers, it's no longer considered innovative either. It's just expected, really. So I think to be successful in omnichannel will be, or in an omnichannel setup, will be to add more personalisation across everything where possible, all the digital sort of ecosystem.
Great. I mean, I think that's kind of about us. We'll obviously open it up to questions as well. We have a stand out in the front. You may have seen it. If you haven't, come join us, say hello. We've got some beer, and we've got some personalised reports that we can send your way, generate for you if you are a retailer, and show you how that kind of works and what we're doing with AI.
A question for Tom really. You've talked a lot about targeted digital marketing there, but are you using AI to influence your physical real estate portfolio? You've seen concepts like 7 in Liverpool and Footasylum Ladies and Leeds. Was that driven by data from AI, or was that part of the decision-making process, and how do you see that evolving going forward?
So 7 is a more premium fascia, and it's actually going through a bit of a transition at the minute. We're going to be moving store to a new store concept, which will be open in the spring. And actually we're going to use that as a bit of a test bed for some of the cooler, that's such a vague word, isn't it, but more advanced, how maybe a store would change when someone moves around the store, which is just like personalisation on another level, where it would work better in low footfall arenas, which is what 7 will be, with it being much more premium. Not necessarily something that we'd ever be able to sort of shoehorn into, that's not a pun as well, shoehorn into Footasylum. I think we're more fascinated about, and it's at the risk of using a bit of a cliche today, but it's relevant, is if the consumer is at the heart of it, it's what the stores will become then. I was the annoying one earlier who asked the question to the panel about the attribution model of stores and web, and I was just testing the guys in a slightly sort of cynical way, whether they what sort of answer they had for me, because we think we're onto how we can build this sort of unified commerce attribution model moving forward, which will be what the future stores are, and it'll be entirely laced with AI. So actually, whilst there will be little nice cool bits coming through, and then bits in the app and things like this, and the communication piece will gather momentum as we move forward with it. We actually think there's a much larger piece which will be around the entire future proofing of any bricks and mortar and digital business, which will be a profound, we think, really cool, profound moment for how we all sort of move forward, and we might need a different word from omnichannel then, because it'll be something more serious.